Hello everyone, my name is Halvey. In this video we're going to be talking about stat boosters and we're going to order them from least to most common throughout the mainline Fire Emblem games. So first I have a lot of rules that I want to go over since there's lots of different ways to acquire stat boosters throughout the series, and really I just wanted to count the ones that the game gives you through maps, like through chests, enemy drops, stealing it from enemies, rewards for meeting certain conditions, stuff like that. So I did not include any secret shops or Anna's Merchant in Awakening, and this is just because throughout the series all major stat boosters are available in an unlimited amount. So secret shops with a limited inventory I did not count either, and a shop in Three Houses, as well as the rod and staff stores in Fates and the lottery. And I didn't include that because you can get one of everything, and then if you just add one of everything to the totals it won't make a difference. What I did include though were bargain shops from Radiant Dawn, as there is not one of everything. In Radiant Dawn bargain shops you can get 1 spirit dust and 2 secret books. So I decided to add that towards the total, since at least for that game you have to actually decide on if you want to spend your money on the secret books and the spirit dust or save your money, whereas in other games you can usually grind for money. Another thing is I didn't include any DLC rewards, or I didn't include renown and like visitation points, because again for those you can just get one of everything, so it wouldn't matter to the totals anyway. And then for gardening stat boosters in Three Houses, you can get one of everything from the greenhouse. However, I made an exception for when you recruit outside students. Some students come with stat boosters from the garden. However, it's not like one of everything. There is no miracle bean or premium magic herbs, so I decided to include what stat boosters they do give you. Then in FE8, in the creature campaign skirmishes, there's a chance that enemies could drop stat boosters, so I didn't include that since that's basically like one of everything and there's no way to like measure that at all. I also did not include the Mario Kart Double Dash bonuses for FE7 transfer data. I didn't include this because it's not something the average person would have access to or use in a playthrough. I did not include the rings from FE4 or Three Houses since they're not permanent consumables, so I only included stat boosters that are consumable basically, and they're not like equipped or passed around between people. Then for remakes and originals, I only counted the stat booster once if it is in the same map or location. However, there are some differences between the remakes and originals. For example, Mikalis in FE1 has a Draco shield, however in FE3 book 1 and FE11 he has an Iote shield instead. So for this example I added 1 to Draco shield. And then for FE7 I did not count the same one twice for both Eliwood and Hector's tails, but I did count unique stat boosters for their respective tails. For example, you get an energy ring in Eliwood's tail in like the first chapter, chapter 11. However, that's not available in Hector's tail. Then the same thing for Fates and Three Houses. If a stat booster is shared between the routes, I only counted it once. So before we get into the major stat boosters and how they rank, I want to do some honorable mentions. So first is the Black Pearl, which is only a stat booster in Three Houses, so it's not going to compare to any other stat booster, as there are only 4 of them that you can get in Three Houses. Next there's the Body Ring / Statue Frag, and there are 12 of these in the series, so I didn't include this with other major stat boosters because the con and like build stats aren't in every Fire Emblem game, so they really don't compare to the others. Next is the boots and the leg ring, as it's called in FE5. So this isn't going to compare to the others as well because of how it's a very limited stat booster. Most games you're going to see one per playthrough, although in Fates, for each route there are 2 that are obtainable. Throughout the series there are 18 obtainable boots. So for the last of the honorable mentions will be the manual / arm scroll. So weapon level was an actual stat in FE1 and FE3, and the manual was a stat booster that increased weapon level in those games. However, later weapon levels were split to weapon ranks instead, and then they introduced the arm scroll item that will increase weapon ranks. So in total there are 43 of these things, and I didn't want to include them with the other major stat boosters because weapon rank I wouldn't consider a stat, and the arm scroll works in different ways depending on the game, and if it wasn't for FE10 there wouldn't be very many of these things. So now we'll get into the actual rankings for what I consider to be the 8 major stat boosters that are seen in most Fire Emblem games. So first we have 2 that are actually tied at the least common. First is the talisman that has either 31 or 34 depending on how you look at it. So there are no talismans in FE5 and there's only one in FE6 and FE10, so it's not a common stat booster. However, there can be 31 or 34 of them depending on how you look at it, because in FE5, like I said, there's no talismans because there is no resistance stat in FE5. In FE5, the magic stat acts as the resistance stat. So in FE5, if you use a magic ring to increase your magic, that's also increasing your res. So there's 3 magic rings in FE5. So if you include that as a talisman, you could say that there are 34 talismans in the series. Next, we have the spirit dust at 31 as well, or 40 depending on how you look at it, because in some games, especially the GBA games, there is no strength magic split. So in like GBA games, the energy ring will increase either your strength or your magic. So if you want to count the energy ring in GBA games as both an energy ring and a spirit dust, you could say that there are 40 of them. So next we have the secret book at 38, and this actually surprised me because for something that has seen in every Fire Emblem game and for increasing probably the worst stat, you'd think that there would be more of them, but surprisingly there aren't. Next is the power ring. There are 40 of these. So like I said before, in GBA games this is called the energy ring, and it will increase either strength or magic. Also in FE1, the power ring only increases strength, as in FE1 there is no magic stat, and increasing strength on a magic unit won't even do anything. It'll be a complete waste. However, in FE3, strength is used for magic units. So using a power ring on a magic unit in FE3 actually does help. Next is the Angelic Robe, in which there are 41 of these things. This is also called a Seraph Robe in the later Fire Emblem games. So the Angelic Robe increases HP. It increases a different amount depending on the game. Next we have the Goddess Icon at 45. This increases luck, and I think it also depends on the game for how much it increases. Then at number 2 is the Speed Ring with 48 of these things. It's also called a Speed Wing, and obviously it increases speed, so it's pretty common considering the fact that it increases arguably the best stat in the game. Then the most common stat booster is the Draco Shield with 49. And here at the end I'm going to put up another graph to include the Sacred Springs from Echoes and Gaiden, as I wasn't sure how to include these, as if it should count as stat boosters or not. I also wasn't sure if I should count only one for each spring or if I should count all possible uses. Also in Echoes there's no strength magic split, it's just an attack stat. So I'm just going to count springs that give you attack as power rings, and this graph is going to account for all possible uses. So with all that said, this is the end of the video. If you enjoy, like, comment, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.